Hello and welcome to another of my human resource management video tutorials. I want to start out this lesson with the question, what was the primary reason that you have quit a job? Maybe it was, A, I did not like my boss or my coworkers. B, I was fired or laid off. C, I sought more interesting or challenging work somewhere else. D, I just simply found better pay somewhere else. Or lastly, maybe it was just another reason. I want you to think about that. Now, as we're going through this video lesson, we're going to explore the dual challenges of separating and retaining employees as a human resource management function. We need to distinguish between voluntary and involuntary turnover to begin with, and we're going to look at how this affects the organization. We're also going to explore the separation process and look at ways to manage the process fairly. And lastly, we're going to discuss how organizations can take to encourage employees to stay. What can we do? What can we change for you or with us that can make you stay with the organization? Now, some new terms you may have come across this year that are new terms, but some things we've seen in the past. But some of the popular terms this year are like quiet quitters and loud laborers and even bore out. Bore out is just where employees are bored, they're unengaged. They just simply feel like they're unfulfilled in their jobs. With quitters, or quiet quitters, these are individuals that simply meet the bare minimum requirements of their job description, but absolutely nothing more. There's no discretionary effort. There's no going above and beyond. They are simply psychologically unattached to their work and their company, meaning that they put in the time, but no energy and no passion. Now that loud laborers term I talked about, these are employees who place more emphasis on making their work known to everyone rather than focusing on the actual work themselves. They're spending more time talking about their workloads than they really are getting any of their jobs done. Now, this is nothing new. In the past, we just simply called them different terms like showboaters. Now, when employees are disengaged, they may spend some time doing things like, looking for other jobs or working on their side hustles, but they also report more missed days of work for illness and mental health issues. Human resource management focuses not only engaging employees to retain them, but also on making sure that a structure is in place in case an employee makes the choice for separation from the organization. Let's talk about turnover. Organizations must try to ensure that good performers want to stay with the organization and that employees whose performance is chronically low, they're encouraged or even forced to leave the organization. Both of these challenges involve employee turnover. That's where employees leaving the organization happens. Typically, the employees who leave voluntarily are either the organization's worst performers who simply quit before they're fired or terminated, or we could see that these are our best performers who can most easily find attractive new opportunities. Now, involuntary turnover occurs when the organization requires employees to leave, often when the employee would prefer to have stayed. Now, voluntary turnover, this is going to occur when employees initiate the turnover, often when the organization would prefer to keep those employees. An employee retires or moves on to an opportunity, we can't control this, but there are some things we can try to do. If an employee is going to retire, if they're at that point, they've made their decision. But if they're not at that point, maybe we can do things within the organization to keep them motivated and keep them loyal. Now, employee discipline should not result in any type of unlawful, wrongful discharge, such as a termination that violates an implied contract or public policy. We want to make sure that we do not have a culture that causes the employee to want to quit and be able to file a lawsuit. Now, both kinds of turnovers, they are very costly. Replacing workers is very expensive, and new employees, well, they always need time to be able to learn their jobs and to build on their teamwork skills. Effective human resource management can help the organization minimize both kinds of turnover, as well as carry it out effectively when necessary. Now, despite an organization's best efforts at personnel selection and training and compensation, some employees are going to fail to meet performance requirements, or they may violate company policies and hence terminate themselves. Organizations must develop a standardized, systematic approach to discipline and discharge. Employees form conclusions about the system's fairness based on the outcome fairness, the procedural justice, and the interactional justice. Employers must meet certain legal requirements whenever they're hiring, as well as firing or terminating an employee. They must avoid wrongful discharge and illegal discrimination. They also must meet standards related to employees' privacy and adequate notices if there's going to be a layoff. So make sure that you educate yourself on the laws that surround this. Discipline should follow principles of what's known as the hot stove rule. And this simply means that discipline should give warning and have consequences that are consistent, objective, and immediate. Sometimes people will say, oh, I just don't have time to discipline, or you know what, we're short, so even though you've broken all the rules for our attendance policy, we need you here right now, so here in a week or two, that's when we'll do your 3-day layoff, because right now we need you here. That's not how you do any type of consequences, and making sure that people realize your system is in place for a rule or in place for a reason when it comes to discipline. Remember, it should be consistent, objective, and immediate. A system that can meet these requirements is what's known as a progressive discipline, in which we have rules that are established and communicated, and there's increasingly severe consequences that follow each violation of the rules. Most organizations have this in place, but not all. A lot of places just kind of handle it on the fly, and that's not how we handle discipline. Here's an example of that progressive discipline that I've listed here. Like I said, we have these rules in place. Let's say it's for attendance. And every time they break that attendance policy, we move up to the next level. We progress to the next discipline. Maybe they have missed a day. All right, well, we're just going to give them an unofficial spoken warning. Hey, we have a 3 rule and out type system here, or we have so many points you can acquire, and then we move to the next step of the attendance policy. Okay, we had our conversation, and then in that conversation you say, if you break the attendance policy again, it's going to be an official written. So let's say they've missed enough and they can't, no points are going to fall off for 9 more months. And then they miss again. So that's when we do an official written warning that they have, broken the attendance policy. And we inform them at every step what's going to happen if it happens again. So the next time it happens, they are given a second written warning, plus tell them, hey, if this happens again, you are going to be temporarily suspended from work without pay for, as I said earlier, 3 days. And they sign it. They acknowledge it. 3 more months goes by. No points have fallen off still. They miss again. Now, you pull them in. You talk to them. Here's where we're at through our progressive discipline. You're now going to be suspended for 3 days without pay. It's going to be documented. You're going to sign it. And this is your very last chance to improve. If you do it again before any of your points come back and you've still got 3 months to go, if you miss again, you're going to be terminated. You are going to terminate your employment with this organization by your choices. All right, they sign it. If it happens again, that's it. You have documented everything. You've followed a very established system. If they try to file suit, you have everything you need to be protected. The organization has everything it needs to be protected. Policy was followed. They signed and acknowledged every step throughout this progressive discipline. Their choices, their life happenings, caused them to terminate their employment. We did not terminate them. They terminated their employment with us. There are lots of different ways for having that progressive discipline. You make it what's necessary for your organization. If your organization does not have a progressive disciplinary process put in place, it'd probably be a good thing to have. Now, organizations may also resolve problems through things like alternative dispute resolution, or ADR. Now, alternative dispute resolution techniques include things like open door policy, where the manager is always free to speak with the employee. The employee knows they can come speak with the manager at any time. We also have peer reviews, where a group of your peers get together, they review the issue, and then whatever resolution they come to, that's what's accepted. We may have mediation, where someone else is, a third party is brought into this, as well as arbitration. These are just a few techniques for some other way to handle resolving any type of disputes. Now, when a company terminates an employee for drug or alcohol abuse, and you can flip that around, the employee has terminated their employment with the employer because of their drug or alcohol abuse, because the policy is there that if you as an employee choose to do this, you will be terminated. You can look at this however you want, but when a termination occurs, the organization's discipline program could also incorporate an employee assistance program known as an EAP. An EAP, or employee assistance program, can be used by an organization as a referral service that employees can use to seek professional treatment for emotional problems or substance abuse. This can be part of the disciplinary process so that an employee is not terminated. This has been the movement in the last few years, so that we're helping our employees with their issues so they can become better and not have this be a negative cloud over their lives where they do not have any income coming in or an employer that will employ them. So we institute an EAP system into the organization as part of the disciplinary process as well. Nearly all companies, or a vast majority of companies, are now starting to offer EAPs, which typically give employees, things like immediate phone access to a counselor, or possibly a set amount of free sessions with mental health care professionals, as well as referrals to therapists. In recent years, employers have added other options to help employees achieve their work-life balance, such as links to child care and elder care providers, as well as sessions with lawyers and financial planners. Now, this could cost an employer anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, or $5,000 to $20,000, or even more, based on what all is included, so that this cost goes into the benefits plan, and it could be less than $1 or much greater to the employees based on how many employees you have. So the more employees you have, the better EAP you could have, and the less it's going to cost employees, because that cost gets distributed amongst more and more people. Now, if someone has a small restaurant business and they have a lot of employees who have substance abuse issues, now that employer may say, you know what, it's not worth $20,000 a year for my 6 employees that I'm going to provide this to, or my 10 employees I'm going to provide this to, because I'm just going to replace those employees with someone new. I'm not going to incur that $20,000 as well as to try to pass it along, some of that cost onto the employees based off of the wages that they're being paid. So you have to do an analysis whether it's cost effective or not. Now, obviously, if you have a lot of employees and the cost is going to be very small, but the rewards could be great, then that's something you're going to consider, and that's why a lot of employers have implemented an employee assistance program. Now, in a study of roughly 24,000 employees collected on 30 employee assistance programs, attributes found that absenteeism in an organization that had an EAP and that workers used the EAP, we saw absenteeism drop about 27%. Now, this study was published in the International Journal of Health and Productivity, and it also discovered that employees' engagement at work seemed to grow about 8%, while satisfaction jumped an amazing 22%. So we can see benefits of having that employee assistance program for many reasons. Now, job-related stress, well, everyone says, oh, I'm so stressed. Well, job-related stress is the nation's leading workplace health problem according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And productivity losses from absenteeism that was related to stress, well, that cost employers about $225 billion, or around $1,700 per employee each year during this study. That's a staggering amount of money. So if we are not going to lose that kind of money, and we could give our employees assistance when they need it, and that cost is less, they're here more, they're engaged more, and they stay longer, we could see long-term advantages of having an employee assistance program. Organizations may also provide things like outplacement counseling, and this tries to help employees that have been dismissed to be able to manage the transition from one job to another. You may have a job outplacement counseling center that's set up if you're a very large organization. That maybe, every so many years you have layoffs due to the way the economy changes or other reasons. And you have this outplacement counseling center that helps the employees that are no longer going to be your employee find employment. That can help in many ways. Now, if rather than former employees being upset and having bad things to say about the organization, if they're helped placed into another job, they're not going to be as angry. They're not going to say as much about their previous employer, and it's actually going to get out that you're trying to help your employees. They may not have been the best fit for you, but maybe they'll be a better fit for someone else. Employee engagement is a hot topic. I mentioned a few of those terms earlier when I started this video. A key challenge today is employee retention, or just simply reducing our voluntary turnover. Retention efforts should address employee engagement, or the degree to which employees are fully involved in their work, and the strength of their commitment to their job and their company. If employees are engaged, if they're happy, and they want to contribute, they are going to be much more committed. If they're much more committed, they're not going to leave the organization. They're going to want to grow within the organization. They're going to build a stronger relationship with the organization. And one of those things we can do is just to recognize our employees and the work that they're doing. As simple as that sounds, it doesn't always happen that way. And if employees see how fair we are, that we're not showing favoritism towards everybody, that too helps with employee engagement. They're going to feel like, hey, this is the area, this is the place I want to be. They can get some clarity in that. If an employee's job is very autonomous and they don't feel like they're contributing anything, they don't understand what they're doing, how that affects the whole organization, that they just feel like they're just going through the motions, they're not engaged. So we want to make sure our employees feel engaged. We want them to stay with our organization. We've invested time and money in selecting them and training them. We want to continue to do that so that they are engaged. Now, when employees become that dissatisfied employee, they may engage in what's known as job withdrawal. They could also, just say this isn't the place for me. Job dissatisfaction may be caused by the employee's own disposition. There could be nothing we could do about that. Or it could be issues that are involving the job role, such as maybe the role is just very ambiguous, or maybe there's conflict, or what happens a lot of time is they have role overload. Another thing is there could be problems with supervisors and coworkers, and we could see that pay levels and benefits are the issue. An employee's first response to dissatisfaction would be to try to change the conditions that generate that dissatisfaction. If I feel dissatisfied that the pay level and the benefits just aren't what they should be, I'm going to have withdrawal and I'm probably going to look for someplace else. When employees cannot work with management to make changes, they may look for help from outside the organization via whistleblowing if it's a cultural issue, if it's an unethical culture, whatever the case may be, or we may see that they look for help through lawsuits. If behavior changes has failed or it seems impossible, that dissatisfied worker may physically withdraw from the job. Employees could also psychologically remove themselves through low job involvement and a lack of organizational commitment. We don't want job withdrawal to occur. We must engage our employees. We want them to be satisfied with the work they're doing and the place that they've chosen to work at. So as human resource managers and as managers in general, we need to promote job satisfaction, which is related to a person's values and it's based on perception. Organizations can improve job satisfaction by considering personal disposition during the selection process or by making jobs more complex and meaningful to the employee with clear and appropriate roles using the role analysis technique. A supportive environment is going to reduce satisfaction, and organizations could help by fostering team building within their organizations. That way the employees not doing everything on their own and they feel a greater part of the organization because they're contributing in a different way. Now, HR professionals can contribute to job satisfaction by communicating the reasoning behind the organization's pay structure and how it does its pay raises. Employers can also better retain employees if they're aware of the satisfaction levels so that they can make changes in the organization. If you're not paying attention to your employees, how are you going to know if they're satisfied or not? So organizations can monitor job satisfaction through things like, putting out surveys for employees to fill out. When we do that, make sure that they're anonymous. People are always going to be much more truthful and honest if it is anonymous. If there's a way to tie them to the survey, and the employees they're not stupid, they can see this. If it's a link or if you have to sign in and there's a way of identifying you, if you're asking for information about demographics, people are not going to want to be honest in their survey. Make sure it's anonymous. If you truly care about your employees and their job satisfaction and meeting your organizational objectives, make your surveys anonymous. Another thing that organizations can do is they can monitor satisfaction through the job descriptive index. You can look up the job descriptive index because I want you to look that up and learn more. An analysis of HR data, such as with exit interviews. A lot of people don't understand why they have to do an exit interview. Most people just want to quit or leave, or they're frustrated, whatever the case may be, on however the separation is occurring. But if we fill out those exit interviews and we're honest, that could help the organizational culture. That could help HR see a trend. Maybe things are tied to a certain manager. Maybe if we have that kind of data, we can look into that specific individual and we see the trends, we have the evidence. Now we have a way of understanding better what's going on within our organization, and we can see if that manager needs trained. Maybe they should not be part of our organization because they're not part of the organizational culture and they're not achieving the organizational objectives based off of their attitudes or their actions. If they can be trained, we'll train them. If not, maybe we're going to help them look for another position because they're not a good fit for our organization. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a larger cultural issue. We don't know if we're not given the information. So that's why exit interviews are very important. A widely used measure of job satisfaction is the Job Descriptive Index. I want you to look into this more, but I wanted to give you an example. So the Job Descriptive Index emphasizes specific aspects of satisfaction, like pay, the work itself that people are doing, how supervision is, or coworkers and promotions. These are just a few items that you might see on a Job Descriptive Index. And you can see from this example, we give clear instructions. We don't want blanks. We want some general feedback. If we're giving this out, it's because we truly want the feedback. We can see we have different rankings and responses for each category. You might not have ever seen this, but something like this that might come around to you, that could motivate you. That could help you even feel better about being able to provide feedback. So this is just one way of measuring job satisfaction. Now, you've probably already thought to yourself, places I've worked at, they've never worried about job satisfaction. They're not measuring it at all. Well, maybe you get that opportunity that you can implement some type of measure just like this Job Descriptive Index. Another example that I wanted to show, as I've shown it here at the bottom, is some job satisfaction scales avoid language altogether, and they rely on pictures like this one here. So you can see this one, you got all these faces here, and it's really just something general about how you feel about your job. Whether you can see from one end you're happy, you're content. You might see not much difference in the 6 and 7 there. Or we might jump all the way to the end where you can tell that person is obviously frustrated or angry or displeased. And all they're simply doing is circling a picture. They're not putting any words out there. There are no words that could, like, oh, there's a variety here. No, we've got specific examples here based off of the different facial expressions. Now imagine, if you will, the results for most people if you got this type of job satisfaction measurement tool given to you regarding your pay satisfaction. Most people probably are not going to lean towards 7, but if you're truly happy and you're getting paid well, you might put yourself at 6 or 7 because you're being honest. But it would be interesting to do that in an organization to get that measurement of how satisfied an employee is with their pay. Now, as HR, that's another area that we're always going to look into is understanding pay and understanding if we are competitive or not with other organizations. But these are just a few different tools that I thought I would share with you on how we as human resource managers can measure job satisfaction in our organizations. Now, I asked you at the very beginning of this video lecture, what was the primary reason that you have quit a job? Now, in the future, when you are the employer or you're in human resources, how about changing that thought to something like, what is the primary reason you chose to want to keep your job? When was the last time you were asked a question like that? What would make you want to stay at the job? What makes you happy with your job? It's usually the other way around, like I started this video with. Having employees want to give their best and be committed to the organization should always be the goal for every manager in every area. In human resource management, we try to help with meeting that goal. I hope you found the information in this video helpful, and I hope you will go out and do some more research yourself, and I hope you take time to reflect on some of this and some of the situations that you've been in the past and apply it to your positions in the future. Thanks, everyone.